Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, November 24th, 2025. Today, we're talking about making your own mulching compost, simplifying the idea of garden tracking, and the good and bad of CSA farming. So let's do it. All right, happy Monday, my nerdy family. I hope you all are doing well and that your weekends were good. Our kids were in a play this week, and they had like 4 shows this weekend, so that was a big chunk of my weekend, but also a ton of fun. Being in a play is a different kind of challenge for my kids, and it's fun to see them acting and being up on stage in front of other people and the comfort they have with that. I didn't really do any children's theater when I was young, but watching all this, I can see how much value it has, and I'm glad we're able to make the time for it for them. I imagine there will be more of this theater thing in our future. So, add like theater nerd dad to my hats. Theater nerd dad hat. Anyway, some quick heads up for the week. I will be going live on Wednesday again for our Thanksgiving Eve celebration, or just really our monthly live, because that's how we roll. So make sure to join us at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the old YouTube with all of your questions about farming and or soccer farming. That's the thing. Thursday, Mike and I are going to take off for our beloved Turkey Sandwich Eve, and then we will have an awesome treat for you all on Friday. After that, and this will blow your mind, we will be in December. Just boom, December. All right, so I wanted to squeeze at least one more week out of our Monday, Tuesday mulch series that we've been doing to round out this November. Honestly, I'll probably go well into December with it too, but I wanted to at least do one more in November. I realized when I was at the CFSA conference the other day that I have never really detailed how to make a simple sort of mulching compost, and with pretty minimal work. Really, time will do most of it for you. Now, to be sure, I have definitely touched on this and basically everything from time to time, but there are a few nuances I wanted to add to flesh it all out. So just to recap, a mulching compost is one that is made very specifically for mulching. These can be very nice compost, what I call nutritional compost, that are more akin to, say, like a raised bed mix, and contain a fully finished compost plus potentially some additional amendments. Or mulching compost can be, rough, hardly screened compost that serve as an okay growing medium, but as a solid mulch for, doing all the mulchy stuff, preserving moisture, keeping the soil in place, all that stuff. Now, I have made a few of this latter version rather passively over the years, and there is no shortage of ways to do it. For starters, though, you will need a carbon source of some form, like a lot of it. So far, I have used hay and wood chips mostly to make these sorts of composts, because that's what's most readily available to me, and not only readily available, but available in large quantities oftentimes. But the idea, and frankly the recipe, is pretty simple. Take one massive amount of carbon, some small amount of nitrogen, like blood meal, but could also be manure or fresh grass clippings or whatever, and then layer those things as it makes sense for the quantity that you have, like a sprinkling of blood meal or a thin layer of manure or whatever. And then add loads of water to each layer to make sure that all of that carbon is nice and moist. Then cover that with a tarp, let it heat up a bit, and then wait 6 months or a year for to use it, and then you can apply it. That's the more sort of intensive version, I guess, since you're layering. So alternatively, and much easierly, just take a giant pile of wood chips and add your kitchen scraps to it regularly, spreading them evenly throughout the pile and occasionally adding water. If the pile is moist enough, you can cover it with a tarp to trap in the heat and the moisture. They also make these like specialty composting tarps for this exact reason, just to kind of throw over compost, that allow for moisture to come in, but not as much goes out, though whatever you have will probably work fine. For hay, if it's green enough, I don't find you really need much in the additional nitrogen source front. And in fact, if you are willing to wait a full year, you probably don't need it for the wood chips either. It's just speeds things up a bit. The water is the key to all of it, though. Without the water, it really just stays a dry carbon source, depending on your climate. Microbes need a lot of moisture, especially when they are, heating things up and breaking down carbonaceous materials like wood chips, leaves, hay, etc. So it may be worth it adding a drip line to the top of the pile to occasionally just have that run and keep the pile well saturated. Moisture also helps prevent any risk of, like spontaneous combustion, which is not common, but not impossible. So keep the pile saturated. Anyway, the idea is not to make the greatest, richest compost in the world, the most complex or anything like that, but a very hands-off, or at least simple, mulching compost that you can use on top of your garden beds. Hay, straw, wood chips, leaves, All those things are fair game, but what I like most about using the tarp and the nitrogen is that, especially for those carbon sources that may contain weed seeds like hay and straw, the tarp will help trap heat and moisture and hopefully either kill or germinate those weed seeds. The last thing to consider is that if manure is your nitrogen source here, you will have to follow the NOP guidelines for manure and or the 91-20 day rule. I've talked about that here on the show already many times, so I will spare you the rerun for that for now, but link you to to like a fact sheet in the show notes for help. Anyway, mulching compost can be pretty simple like that. Anyone do anything like a mulching compost, a simple mulching compost that takes little to no effort or cost? Let us know and what that looks like for you and your procedure. And otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, tracking the garden. Where did it go? Be right back.
Hi, Farmer Tracy. This is Andrew. We just finished cleaning up our yard. Still has a bunch of leaves, but each year I shred them up and throw them into the garden beds. So broccoli's a little ragged. They got hit by some aphids, but yeah. Otherwise, that's pretty much it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Amy Peary, who writes, quote, "Hey Jesse, you often mention taking good notes from season to season, and I'm wondering if you can show us what that looks like for you. I'm a hobby gardener, and my notes are loosely organized in a journal, but I feel like there's probably a better way to do it. Thanks for all you do," end quote. So this is a great question, and somewhat disappointingly, I don't have an easy way to show you our notes. Basically, up until 2024, we used a program called Cog Pro, which kept track not only of basic production stuff, but all of our organic certification requirements. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a bit what this looks like, what the site looks like. Basically, it looks like a website out of the early aughts. So I wish I had a better, more shareable version of those notes. However, in a day-to-day practical sense, how we would do it is that I would text Hannah what I did for that day or what amendments I added, etc., and she would input that into the system. Then when we had our audit or whatever, we could search specific plots or beds or crops and have all the information readily available. The reason that I texted it to her, and not just I just did it myself, was basically to have a second record just in case something happened and I needed to show the certifier what we'd done so that I could look it up in my text like a backup. And that system worked fine, I guess. I mean, if you can tell by the way I said it, it wasn't my favorite system, but for us it was functional and I could look up the things that I needed. There are other systems out there, of course, that would probably be more effective, or honestly, especially in a backyard garden situation, a simple Google Sheets set up with a few different spreadsheets, maybe one for planting, one for fertility management, and one for keeping track of harvest numbers and that sort of stuff. That would be more than enough and super simple to do. That way you can easily make a habit out of just doing a task and then taking out your phone and recording it on the sheet, or taking out your notebook and writing it down, and then once a week or once a month or whatever, filling out your Google Sheets. Spreadsheets are pretty incredible. They can give you, averages. They can help you understand what crops are working better than others, those sorts of things. I kind of love spreadsheets and wish I had just spent my energy, learning how to do those really well, and instead of doing all the upfront work for Cog Pro. Also, shouts to Dan Breezewa, who runs a Farmer Spreadsheet Academy, and to me, that would have been a better use of my time just to go take that and learn different ways to do farm-applicable spreadsheet construction. Yeah, That would be a smart thing to do. But I use Google Sheets for a lot of stuff now. I use it for soccer stuff. I use it for keeping track of stuff for the show. The kids and I even have a spreadsheet going that records what car we are in line at the school drop-off every morning, so we can make better guesses based on the time that we arrive as to where we will be in the car line that morning. I'm really raising some nerds here. So yeah, important things like that. But I also like Google Sheets because they are easily shared with other people, so they, employees, spouses, whoever, can also input tasks that they've completed and everybody can see it kind of all at the same time. Of course, a whiteboard in the shed can, with some basic notes, could also do the trick nicely. And like I said, same thing, you could sort of transfer those to a Google Sheet or Excel sheet later when you have the time. Again, professionals can and probably should, depending on your scale, use a professional program unless you are just an ace at Airtable and or spreadsheets or whatever. But for the average person, a simple spreadsheet will set you free. For sure. Big fan here. Slowly, that is what I'm moving towards, trying to get one of those together for our farm, moving away from CogPro and designing a spreadsheet that makes sense for us on our new scale. Anyway, I hope that was a little bit helpful, and others can feel free to let us know what your garden tracking systems look like. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the pros and cons of subscription-style farming. Be right back.
Hey, Brian here at Snowflake Farm. If you find yourself with abundance of tomatoes at the end of the season, just cut the tops out of them and throw them in a freezer bag. When you're ready to use them, just let them thaw out for a little while and run them under warm water and the skin will come right off. Works great.
Today's episode is brought to you by High Mowing Organic Seeds. High Mowing Organic Seeds is celebrating their 30th anniversary with 47 fabulous new varieties for 2026. Highlights include downy mildew-resistant cucumbers, a poppy that looks like cotton candy, and 12 new tomato varieties. High Mowing offers more than 750 varieties of certified organic, non-GMO vegetables, flowers, herbs, and cover crops, all trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use code 26NOTILL, all one word, 26NOTILL, for 10% off your order of $100 or more. That's highmowingseeds.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Marble Seed. The Marble Seed Organic Farming Conference attracts a wide range of regenerative and organic farmers for 3 days of skill development and community building. Farmer Drew Kramer said, "Going to Marble Seed was so invigorating at a time when I needed it most. I picked up tools I'm already using." The conference is the final week in February in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Early registration opens December 4th at conference.marbleseed.org. That's conference.marbleseed.org. All right, back to the show. All right, so when I was, I guess, coming up in the farming world 16 years or so ago at this point, it seemed like the CSA was all the rage. This is the marketing strategy where you effectively sell all of your food up front and then deliver it throughout the season, usually once per week, but it varies by season and farm. And I don't think it's quite as popular as it used to be, but for the first few years that we were learning to farm, and then for the first few years that we were farming off on our own, we ran a CSA. And I still think there's merit to it. It's a cool idea, and it can be done in many different ways. So I thought I would do a little pros and cons, because although I think it is really fun and interesting way to farm that gives some incentive to grow crops that we may not normally grow, like fennel or kohlrabi or even eggplant and peppers, that are all crops we love to grow but struggle to sell as much at the farmer's market. But like all marketing strategies, the CSA has some downsides. On the pros side is that diversity. You get to play around with crops you might not normally grow for, say, a farmer's market or a restaurant, because no one will necessarily consistently buy them. Customers don't love a ton of weird stuff, but one new and interesting item per week is pretty fun for them. On the con side, maybe a pro, but on the con side, it can be at first, is that you need to know how to grow a lot of different stuff and, in fact, be able to time it well. I think a lot of folks get attracted to the idea of a CSA because you get this huge influx of cash in the beginning of the season, but you really have to know what you're doing to come through on the promise of vegetables. It can take a while to not only get the timing down, but the quality and the preservation. On the pro side, though, is definitely having that budget right there in your bank account, maybe before you've even started a crop, besides your garlic, of course. Back to the con side is the stress of a bad season. It's really easy with the CSA to get in a hole and struggle to get out of it. So if the season goes poorly to start, you can feel that stress every week for like several months, which is brutal. This goes back to knowing how to grow well. You have to know the tricks for a fast recovery after, say, a severe drought or flood or whatever it may be. With that in mind, though, on the pros side, if you do it right with good communication with your customers, you develop a forgiving customer base who is willing to accept a poor week from time to time because they know what you're going through. They read about it in the newsletter that week, or however you communicate with your customers every week. That is the sort of idea behind a CSA. It's a community-supported agriculture program, emphasis on community. Another overlooked con, perhaps, is managing excess. Like, you want to give your customers squash, zucchini, eggplant, but you don't want to over give those things, or they will not do the CSA ever again. Customers hate to waste food. It's one of the biggest reasons customers drop out of doing a CSA. So finding other outlets for those particular crops can be a challenge, or it's actually just kind of part of the gig. That, however, can also be a pro if you have the right markets who will take excess produce and maximize your production. It's really nice in a CSA to get to know the people who eat your food so well. We made friends through the CSA, got assistance with harvests, all sorts of benefits from the community. However, perhaps another downside is that it's not always very accessible financially. At the farmer's market, we could sell produce pretty affordably and even take SNAP and double dollars and WIC and all the things. But as a solo CSA, it's really only accessible to people who can afford a huge chunk of change up front without a product being handed to them immediately, in some cases for months. There are sliding scales and donations and that sort of thing that you can sort of build into your model. But that is an element that can make it feel a bit more challenging for those of us who think everyone should have access to high quality food, because they should have access to high quality food. Everyone should. Anyway, CSA growers, what has been your experience? What have you done about the affordability factor? What pros and cons did I miss? Let us know. And otherwise, we're going to take the rest of the day to reflect upon that really lackluster performance against Inter Miami yesterday. Just what was going on there. And call it a Monday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and/or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of November, you get a shout out in the show. So big shout outs today to Jim Baker, Michael, and Danielle Scott. Shouts you all. Big thanks. All right. So because we have kind of a wonky week this week's story will be a little short, but you know who else is having a wonky week? Mildred. You see, Mildred was supposed to go on a trip to see her favorite play on Broadway in New York City for the first time, but unfortunately, much of Broadway had been destroyed by a giant sea creature again. And so Mildred would just have to, wait again. The prevalence of sea creature attacks or alien invasions or, monster infestations in New York City had been increasing over the years. And although New York had grown exceptionally adroit to repairing itself, it's pretty good at it, Mildred felt frustrated that no one would just, step up and just protect the city. So Mildred, determined to finally get to see her favorite show live and on the actual Broadway, packed her bags and moved to the Big Apple with a dream and some special powers. But that is for tomorrow on Break a Leg, the Mildred McQuills story. McQuills is a fun last name. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching and/or listening. We will see you then. Bye.